Hey, peace and blessings. It's your brother. Sorry, back with yet another one. Yeah, just a quick one in the morning. I might end up revisiting this one or doing like a little part two to this one, a little bit later on. Um, yeah, this video, really, I ain't got nothing wrote up for this one. It's kind of, kind of just chopping it up just off the hip. But this video here is about contrast. So a lot of what we do. Um, in regards to making a lot of videos, especially on topics like the ancient world and everything like that. I make a lot of videos on the ancient world um, to kind of provide contrast. And what I mean when I say contrast, I'm not trying to, like I always say with some of the other materials, because and I know when y'all listen to me on this channel, you know, we kind of shift focus from time to time. We talk about history 1 minute, we talking about the the workings of the mind 1 minute, and sometimes, like now we having like just straight talk. Now we just having straight talk. Um, yeah, so I know we shift gears a lot, but a lot of times in this, I'm just trying to provide contrast. I'm not trying to convert nobody to or away from nothing. I'm not really emphasizing any type of I don't know, overly religious type notion in my delivery of a lot of stuff. And when I go into history, the reason why I go so far back into history or whatever case may be, I never really, I put my soapbox down about a decade or so ago. You know what I mean? I don't debate people or nothing like that. I don't do that. I don't talk. I'm not debating nobody about no religion or nothing like that. I don't do that. But I will just sit this right here. I will put an elephant in the room. I'll get an elephant and wheel him out here and sit him in the middle of the room and just sit him there and just let him chill, and then we just figure out what this is. So that's why we go so far back when we deal with the ancient world. That's why we go back 12,000 years, because if somebody tells me, man, this is the holy language of da 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 da, then I'll go back 12,000 years, and there's no language that we know of today that's remained consistent from 12,000 BC up until 2025. There's no language, there's no religion, there's nothing in its consistent form that has existed that long or whatever. There's no Hebrew 12,000 BC, there's no Arabic 12,000 BC. They ain't even know the metal that you see on a lot of the walls in Egypt is not even in existence in 12,000 BC. So we go back that far, and then once we start from there, and then we go up, we see a lot of the things that we thought looked a certain kind of way, we see them differently. So that's why we um, do things like that to provide contrast. Um, me personally, um, you know, I look at it like you ever seen the movie Talladega Nights with with Will Ferrell? Shout out to Will Ferrell and R.I.P. to Michael Clark Duncan. See that scene where Ricky Bobby rolls he gets rolled in there. He says, I'm about to quit racing, man. I'm paralyzed. I'm paralyzed. And Michael Clark Duncan says, Ricky Bobby, you're not paralyzed. I am too paralyzed. You're not paralyzed. In this scenario, the contrast that I'm providing, I'm the Michael Clark Duncan in that scene. Um, Ricky Bobby, you're not paralyzed. And in that same vein, we're gonna go into this, man, one of my favorites, man. Um, Ross Ben, Rocks of Ages, to just put some more contrast on this. And this ain't gonna be a long video. We might go back into this, um, but just for some contrast. And I want to kind of couple this, what I'm about to read, with what we talked about in the previous video. When we talked about the history of the Guale. We talked about the history of the Guale, and how they connect with the Olmec, Maya, and stuff like that. In the history of the Guale, talk about they've been in America 50,000 years. We know the inhabitants at the Tierra del Fuego, the southern tip of South America. According to the first Americans were African, the book by Dr. David Imhotep. Um, the Fuegians, who speak a language with click consonants, similar to the Twat in Africa. click consonants, the words they have clicking sounds and stuff like that, or whatever the case may be. It's a language isolate or whatever the case may be. The Fuegians have been there 250,000 years. So just to kind of lay that out, because again, we're providing contrast. We just want the holy language of God and all this. No, we ain't dealing with none of that. We dealing with facts and figures, because if you tell me that this is the one and true only thing, then if I have evidence of these people being here, like how he says here, how he breaks down, let's say, um the age of Amun Ra, let's say like the age of Gemini, 6,528 to BC to 4,393 BC. Who was the one chosen in? You see what I'm saying? So we gotta kind of get out of that and not be so easy and eager to put that on. You gotta kind of be open. Time is circular. Time is not linear. Time is not linear. Um, our modern day scientists and anthropologists did that to us when they made time linear and said that, hey man, society or civilization wasn't popping, so called, until this group of people came on the scene at this particular day. So from this day, things began to pop off or whatever in civilization. And as we're gonna see when we read this, that cannot be the case. Time is circular. Time goes in circles and actually spirals, but circles for the sake of this conversation. So moving right along. Okay, so I'm gonna get into a little bit of a little slither out of this Rocks of Ages by the brother Ross Ben. Um, real good book, one of my favorite ones. And I just get into the hard copy. Okay, so this is page 22. Just gonna read a little bit. Um, Comedic accounts of prehistory, right? Egyptologists like to paint the picture that Kemetic high culture sprang up suddenly with the first dynasty of Menes, around 3100 BCE. Some say 4240 BCE. However, Kemetic accounts of their history date back around uh, 33,000 to 52,000 years before the first dynasty was founded. So that sounds a lot similar to the time frames. Remember when we were reading out the brother Lanier Davis's book, he was talking about the origins of the Guale in America. He was talking about they date themselves, their oral history dates them as being there at least fit for 50,000 years. And when we're going into the prehistory of Egypt, he's going into numbers like 50,000 years. One of the sources is referenced to as the Royal Papyrus of Turin, which lists all the kings who ruled Kemet from Menes through the New Kingdom of the 18th dynasty. However, before the royal list, the Royal Papyrus has recorded the rule of 10 Nitir gods: Ta, Ra, Shu, Geb, Asar, Set, Haru, Tahuti, Ma'at, and Aset, all of whom reigned on the planet. These Netir were said to have collectively ruled for 23,200 years. Following the rule of gods are 9 dynasties of Shemsu-Hor, or followers of Heru. The followers of Heru are depicted as demigods, immortal humans, who were the children of the Netir. They ruled for 13,420 years before the reign of Menes. Okay, when we talk about Menes, that's the first dynasty. Okay, the Papyrus of Turin, as a result, accounts for 33,620 years of prehistory. Dodorus of Sicily, in his Library of History, says that the Kemetic sources he spoke to chronicled a rule of gods and heroes that lasted 18,000 years. Divine humans then ruled for a span of 15,000 years, for a total of 33,000 years of culture before the reign of Menes. So Menes is ancient to us. There's 46 dynasties in Egypt before Egypt becomes a state of Rome. He's taken over by Rome and stuff like that in the last dynasty and everything like that. There's 46. So what he's talking about, the first dynasty is 3000 BC under Menes or whatever case may be. And he's talking about how there's 33,000 years prior to that of rulership prior to that. Herodotus chronicles a reign of 340 dynasties of kings and high priests who ruled Kemet before Hellenistic occupation. He says that the Kemetic priests he spoke to said four separate occasions on 4 separate occasions. Now this is okay. Go back to the video we did about the Western sunrise. Okay, on 4 separate occasions, the sun moved from its wanton course, twice rising where it now sets and twice setting where it now rises. Go back to the video about Western sunrise. That's the and that whole cycle is explained. We go into the book by the brother Malik Jabbar, and he explains that whole cycle. That's like a 2 million year cycle of a polar shift, a polar flip is what he's talking about. I explained the whole thing. Um, this is a reference for the precession of the equinoxes, which has already been detailed. Now, you know, that what the brother said about the sun rising in the west, that's a 2 million year cycle. The precession of the equinox is a 26,000 year cycle. He's confusing the two, but at the same time, um, that's a very obscure cycle. So that's probably why. This is a reference to the precession of the equinoxes, which has already been detailed. It takes about 2,135 years for the equinox sunrise to precess through one sign, and about 25,626 years to move 360 degrees through all 12 signs of the zodiac. This means that the Kemites have a chronology that dates back about 52,000 years, two full precessions of the equinox. There is more. Um, there is more. Manetho chronicles 15,150 years of divine dynasties and 9,777 years of mortal kings before Menes. Okay, um, this totals 24,927 years of history. Another Kemetic chronology of antiquity. Uh, yeah, so he gets into all that. He gets into the various different chronologies and the thousands and thousands of years of rulership prior to what we know as the dynasties. Um, okay, so I'm gonna get into. I'm gonna go down to on page 23 where he gets into the three lands. In order to overstand the astrological recording of the Kemetic great year, the great year 25,950 years can be rounded off into 26,000 years. One must understand the geography incorporated in Kemetic cosmology. This is due primarily to the fact that the history recorded in the Kemetic great year is beyond the history of Kemet itself. It's beyond the history of Kemet itself. There are three distinct regions of note, each of which has its own distinct age and culture, right? So he says, Ta Neter, Ta Neter. Ta Neter literally means land of the gods. Ta means land and Neter means divine beings. Geographically, Ta Neter is located in equatorial Africa around the region of the Great Lakes. Then we say in the book by Jean Pierre Hallet, Pygmy Katabu, we're talking about the Ituri rainforest at the foothills of the mountains of the moon, where the god Hapi dwells. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that's what they say. The foothills of the mountains of the moon are at the Ituri rainforest, where the pygmies or the Twa dwell. You see what I'm saying? Okay, Lake Tanganyika, Lake Nyasa, and Lake Nyanza. The Kemites also called this region Apta, the summit of the earth. Apta, the original mythological mountain of the gods, the Kemetic mountain Hetep, Hindu Mount Meru, the Greek Mount Olympia. This region is a vast plateau in modern Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, Tanzania, uh, Malawi, excuse me, and eastern Zaire. The average altitude of Apta is 5,000 feet above sea level. The runoff of the Great Lakes in this region is the source of the White Nile. So that's pretty much the same thing we were talking about on previous videos when we went into talking about the Ituri rainforest and everything. Um, so this is the source of their civilization, or whatever case may be. Tarnatir is depicted in Kemetic cosmology as an earthly paradise where human gods lived in a state of divine immortality. So basically, they're talking about the pygmies. This is a part of the mythos of the pygmies, or what other people said about the pygmies. Tarnatir is depicted as, in Kemetic cosmology as an earthly paradise where human gods lived in a state of divine immortality. The original Garden of Eden was a place where water and vegetation were in continual abundance. In this Kush oasis, fresh water would perpetually well up from Amenta, the underworld. Okay, all right. Uh, and I'm gonna cut it right there because I know it's early in the morning. I'm gonna pick up. Um, I'll pick up this evening probably, and we'll probably get into some of the different phases. And what I mean when I say different phases, um, what this brother does, he illustrates in this book how um, their civilization was set up um, um, in sync with astrological cycles, these cycles that corresponded with the great year and everything like that. He talks about, let's say, I will do this before um, um, the end of this video. When he goes into these various things, and I'm just gonna read this little section out of the book, even when the part two of this video, however it may go, just to kind of put this in perspective. When he talks about time, we're talking about cyclical time. So he talks about uh, just to kind of put it in context, he talks about the age of Pisces, 25, or the age of Anu. This is when the Anu, one of the first iterations of the Anu people come down and everything like that, and they start to found some of the cities. He dates that at 25,743 BC to 23,608 BC. Okay, he goes into, okay, um, coming back from the age of Pisces, you get the age of Capricorn, the age of Nu, he says 21,473 BC to 19,338 BC. Goes into the age of Sagittarius, the age of Shu, 19,338 BC to 17,203 BC. You see what I'm saying? All the way up into, let's say, um, you'll get into, um, uh, he gets into the, let's see, talks about how different places were founded in correspondence with different ages, like the age of Hebrew or the age of the previous age of Libra. He talks about 15,068 BC to 12,933 BC. You see what I'm saying? So that he talks about the age of um, Aset Net, Virgo, 12,933 BC to 10,798 BC. So he's talking about these various different time frames, and when we get into it, um, he's synchronizing them with different places being found, Tar Seti being found during the age of I think he says the age of Sagittarius. He talks about Tamaray being founded during the corresponding with the age of Virgo and everything like that. You see what I'm saying? So he correlates it, but the point of all of that is these large, expansive periods of time in prehistory, no less. You see what I'm saying? These are the same periods of time that they tell you everybody's a caveman. They throw around these terms of Paleolithic this and all that stuff like that. And it's even been said that they go great lengths to fit the things that they find um, into these narratives that they've already crafted or whatever case may be for humanity's history and stuff like that. I think Michael Cremo says that in Forbidden Archaeology. He talks about that when they find these things that should not exist, these artifacts that should not exist in time that belong to time periods far removed from our own. They go to great lengths to craft narratives to fit them in and to stay mainstream so they can keep the money and the funding flowing in. So some of us have to be that contrast. Ricky Bobby, you are not paralyzed, and let people know that it's more to the story than what these people been telling us. Those of us who study Egyptology, we know they created Egyptology just to kind of like kind of hover over that and police that because it's so counter to the biblical narrative and so far preliminary to the biblical narrative. So we just want to put that one down. I'm gonna kind of cap it off right there, and we'll get back into this a little bit later this evening. Peace and blessings. Thank you for tuning in. You like what you've been hearing, like and subscribe. Thanks for the love. Y'all have a good morning. Be safe. Catch y'all in a couple hours. Peace.